Welcome to Shugyo, reflections on the path to self-mastery and forging the way. My name is Adam Mitchell. I'm your host and fellow student along this path. This is a project that I have put together to explore those deeper dimensions, that next step in your martial art training outside of the dojo, within the dojo, and within your own heart and within your own spirit. It's about that thing that people say, martial arts isn't just about punching, kicking, and choking. It's something more. It's the reason why parents feel they should bring their children to martial art to learn something, but they never really know quite what it is. They can say confidence and character development and hard work, self-defense, and all these real kind of these sort of things out there but they can't really define it perfectly. What is that? Is it the cultivation of the Tao? Is it the path of the Bushido or the warrior's way? What exactly is it? In this project, I hope to work towards having conversations with those people who have walked that path, those people who are cultivating that way, and share their stories with you and hopefully inspire you to walk your own path and to be able to create your story. Today, I want to start off with something that we hear about all the time. It's told to us over and over again, especially in the martial art that I study. It's something that has been written in books. It's sort of this kind of saying that everybody says, and it's very simple: keep going. But what does that actually mean? Is it just a high five? Is it just kind of a pat on the ass? Like, what does keep going mean? Now, in the Japanese martial arts, that can be translated to in a number of different ways to mean a number of different things. What I've discovered, and in my own experience, is something quite different, and I want to share that with you. In one of the important programs that I offer at my dojo, we do a very topic-specific, highly focused, and abbreviated period of time where a small group of students focus on one specific area, and they do so, like I just said, for a compressed period of time, usually about 6 weeks. And this is called a gashuku. Now, in Japan, businesses and sporting teams and really, in karate and judo, they'll do gashaku where students will go away. They'll go off to the mountains and they'll do a week of hardcore training. Here in our dojo, this was sort of came out of COVID, where I wanted to take communities of students and do these online intensives and give them work and projects that they could do so that they could continue to expand themselves with Budo, or the old martial arts, and continue to train and stay alive, right? So the gashaku that we began online has grown into those. And it's something that I discovered inside these gashaku that I want to share with you. Now, like I just said, there's a significant focus on fundamentals and like a real core understanding of basics in each one of these training experiences. And for us and for my students, on average, I'm looking at them achieving repetitions of their basics, of whatever the root material is going to be, of whatever that topic is, by somewhere passing around 2,000 repetitions of the fundamentals each week. So that's going to be around 350 a day. And they're going to have, a day of recovery. But this is going to put them, if they're doing the numbers like that, if they're getting about 2,000 a week, that's going to put them at 12,000 repetitions by the end of the gashaku. And that kind of speaks to that number of 10,000. Regardless of culture or tradition, that number is the gold standard for understanding and owning a movement. Like, once you do it 10,000 times, then you understand it. Now, the challenge that I bump up against with that is that if you do something 10,000 times just a little bit wrong, you're going to be really good at doing it wrong. This is why even when I spent 25 years teaching children. One of the first things that children would learn when they came into my dojo was, I'd ask, how many guys think practice makes perfect? Raise your hand. And of course, everybody puts their hand up because that's what they learn, in gym class, or that's what they learn at school. Practice makes perfect. In Budo, practice does not make perfect. Practice makes permanence. What makes perfection is the focus on form. And once the form is developed, Then you move on to accuracy. Repetition is certainly a breeder of success, and it's incredibly important to have. However, doing the core basic behind the form 12,000 times in this gashaku supports the actual topic that we're working on. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. If they're executing this kata or this form study as I've laid out in each of the lesson plans, then their strikes are going to be, as I just said, well into 2,000 a week, well past 12,000 by the end of the gashaku. And that one part of the form will be correct. After the first week, I ask them a couple of interesting questions. The first is, look at your hands. Now, if you've ever done a gashaku on your own, or if you've ever done any type of training like this that has that level of intensity, then you're going to know that if these students are doing the training, then they're going to see blisters, or they're going to at least see old calluses get some shine to them. And I'm sorry if they're not breaking through those blisters and they're not having to tape up their hands and put gauze on their hands and wrap their wrists or wrap their knuckles. They're not training hard enough right now inside that gashaku. They need to push themselves further. What does that look like? Now, I'm certainly not saying hurt yourself. If you're not hurting yourself, you're not doing it hard enough. No, I'm not saying that at all. The next is I want them to feel their legs and their arms. Now, of course, depending on whatever that topic is, if they're not feeling that lactic acidosis, which is just that soreness brought on by intense training, they're simply not training enough. They have to push forward. They have to push forward. They have to keep the trajectory that they're on going forward. They have to build momentum. They have to become more. Now, for those students that do have their wrists wrapped or their hands taped or they've got Band-Aids on or they're soaking their muscles or they're using ice packs, great, I honor them. But if you're not one of those and you don't find yourself even after a regular class, after a regular, as we call a session of keiko, even if it's a jishu keiko, which is a term in my kobudo, the traditional martial art that I study, is a term that we use pretty frequently, which is just solo training. If each of these sessions don't come with some type of exhaustion, of some type of breakdown, then there is nothing to build up from that breakdown. A common saying and this common salutation in the martial art that I study is keep going. Now, keep going is something that can be translated in Japanese in a number of different ways and kind of have some different context to it. But I'm going to share with you what my experience is again and sort of bring the context to the dojo into this. Now, I think too often this word is this salutation or the sign off. Keep going, Adam. It's kind of too much of a feel good teenage cheerleader on the sideline, sort of rooting you on thing. But rather, I'd like to give you a different perspective. I feel it's more of an in your face command to understand the demands of this art. If you suppose that you're going to get it or if you even deserve it. I hope that makes sense. If you want this art, then go get it. And if you do choose to go get it, then you damn well better expect to keep going. This art isn't a place for hobbyists if they're going to get it. Hobbyists get broken. Watchers or hem touchers who pay exorbitant amounts of cash just for a piece of paper brushed by some Japanese dude that they barely even know, brushed in some language that they can't even read. This isn't for them. They're the ones who are going to say, keep going with a high five and not get it. Consider like that Budo is discovered in many zones of exhaustion. Exhaustion that each student journeys into, whether that be like physical or emotional or spiritual, even having sort of their own subdimensions of stress. There are a lot of different subdimensions, and many of those unique subdimensions are unique to our own paths. I don't have that same path that you do. But one thing is true, that if we are going to use Budo as the fuel for our path, then it's imperative that in order for us to understand that, we have to go for it. We have to go after it. And in order to do that pursuit, it's mandatory that we keep going. And in order to do that, we have to understand that we will become vulnerable. We will become broken. We must break down in order to grow stronger. If you are not breaking down in your training, there's nothing to build back up. You're a hobbyist. If you're listening to this, I don't think that you're one of those, but we see them all over the place. As we all know, the watchers, they look for that fast path. Maybe it's lots of belts. Maybe it's lots of paper. Maybe it's lots of brushings and, never realizing that it's so easily seen by those of us that are actually doing the work. But sadly, they're just sort of grains of sand in the wind eventually. They dissolve, they become nothing. I really believe that those of us on the path, on this journey, are building something for our own legacy, whatever that looks like. You could be doing this to help you build spiritual strength. You could be doing this because you want to weigh a path to age gracefully. You could be doing this because you want an edge in your combat sport routine. Possibly you just simply enjoy the historical aspects to traditional martial arts, and you make it part of your lifestyle. It doesn't make a difference. However, for those of us on the path who are inspired to keep going, this involves chiseling, pounding, forging the body, the mind, the mental depth that it takes to study, to push yourself almost to the point of madness some days. Commonly, we refer to this as like tanren, of that pounding, right? It creates wholeness. It creates longevity. And in each one of the gashakus that we do at our dojo, it's an offering from my dojo for us to take one step, just one step together during these 6 weeks on this long journey. This is what I want to offer in my dojo, really nothing more, just to be able to provide steps like a gashaku. The rest, though, is up to us, each one of us as students. But we have to acknowledge that the door is always open. Training is up to you. You have to go for it. You have to go after it. And when you do, you have to keep going. I truly hope that this gave you some food for thought, something to consider, possibly a new way of looking at keep going. And possibly the next time you say that to someone, if you're someone who does say it, you sort of have a new context to it. And if you don't say it, well, maybe now's a good time to start. Shugyo is brought to you by the Yasaragi Dojo, a traditional Japanese martial arts school and nonprofit 501c3 organization located in New York. I'm your host, Adam Mitchell, and I truly hope that you found some value and inspiration from this conversation. If you'd like to learn more about our dojo, yes, it's an actual physical dojo, not just some virtual one made up on the internet, find us on the web at yasaragidojo.com. The link is in the show notes. Or go ahead and access our free mobile app for iPhone and Android. There, you can access our daily training, coaching, live streams, meditations, workshops, and both online and in-person retreats. Our work depends on the generosity of our supporters, dedicated students around the world, and you by listening to this episode. So if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this channel, and you'll be updated on new episodes and reflections as they roll out. And if you know someone who will enjoy the conversation that we had today, please go ahead and share. Once again, my name is Adam. This is Shugyo. Until next time.